Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I'm really excited. I'm going to talk about something that I wish there had been a video for prior to my experience. Maybe there was and I just never found it. But today I'm going to talk about what the interview/audition process was like for getting into grad school for music therapy and counseling. So I had researched this whole process a bunch. I spent 2 years maybe kind of just thinking about if I wanted to go back to school and what that would look like with my schedule and everything. So I kind of already had an idea of what this process was going to look like. Now, disclaimer, every school has a different requirement sheet for your audition. Make sure that you if you're applying, are checking to see what the specific requirements are for your school. They should have a super clearly outlined kind of rubric, so to speak, or outline of what they expect you to have prepared for your audition. So this was personal to my school. So this was during COVID times. I had my audition interview in July 2020. And so it was done over Zoom, which, to be honest, I was really excited about. There's something about, there's such a difference between being face-to-face with someone versus through a screen. I felt like there was less pressure this way. And the cool thing is I got to pick my location of where I wanted to be. So I actually didn't pick my home. I picked my music studio there where I work, because I was comfortable there. I knew it was going to have a really cool background. We have a whole music wall behind us. And I knew I was going to have all of the instruments that I needed there, everything that I needed there, I knew was going to be within reach. So I picked my music studio. So that was kind of unique, I guess, to my experience, unless you're having a similar experience. So how it worked out was, it was me, the kind of like department head, who's also a professor of the program, and then like an admissions director or head of admissions. So it was just the three of us, and of course they were on two separate screens in two different places. I had already spoken a little bit with the department head because I had a couple questions about the program and everything. So she and I had actually already had a Zoom meeting just about the program specifics in general. So there was that level of comfort there already, which was really nice. And it kind of it was very free flowing. And I guess let me back up and talk about how I prepped for this. So I am a preparer. I like to prepare for things and prep things, especially things like this. So what I did was I put together a quick little Google sheet that I knew I was going to be able to have next to me during the interview/audition, because it was over Zoom, another great perk. So I basically just had a few bullet points prepared of questions that I thought they might ask me. Now, I consulted Google for this, typical grad school questions. I also consulted my husband, who is about 4 or 5 months into his MBA program, what his interview questions were like. Totally different programs, but they did ask very similar questions. So what I prepared was for them to ask me, why are you choosing this degree? What are your strengths and weaknesses? Give examples of how you've already used what you know in terms of this degree, in terms of this sort of curriculum in your life. Because I am a music teacher, I felt like I had a lot of examples of how to use music therapy with children. Where do you see yourself after you complete the program, and why are you choosing this specific school? So it's 5 questions I prepared. Bullet points, bullet points, bullet points. No complete sentences. I definitely didn't want to be like, I think that this is the right, no. Bullet points, just so that you can glance over and make sure that you're on the right track and you don't start rambling. I don't know about you, but I definitely have the tendency to ramble sometimes. So I prepped my answers for those questions. For the audition, their requirements were actually not that complicated, not that extensive as other programs that I've seen. So they required 7 songs in total, 3 on guitar, 3 on piano, and then 1 on your preferred instrument, either guitar or piano. I've been playing guitar a lot longer than and more frequently for sure, than I play piano, so I chose my 7th song on guitar. The other thing that's super important is that you choose a whole lot of different genres and styles, and they specifically outline this in the actual list of things that they require. So they wanted 1 children's song on each instrument, and then basically like show us what you can do. You can do show tunes, you can do classic rock, pop, jazz, really anything. I'll get to the songs that I picked and why I picked them in just a second. So that was how I prepared. I had about 2 weeks. I think it was about 2 weeks that we had like sent the email and accept you for the interview audition process to the actual day. 2 weeks is not a short period of time to prepare for something like this. It's also not the most time in the world. So I'll talk about that more with the audition process. So the actual Zoom meeting, so to speak, was kind of layered. It was like an interview question and then a song, an interview question and then 2 more songs, and then 2 interview questions and then a song. So it wasn't really interview audition, which is how I thought it would kind of go. But I was cool with this way too. It kind of made it feel a little more organic, a little more like we could kind of take a moment and chat with each other. So the whole process took a little over an hour, maybe an hour and 10, hour and 15. And we started off just saying hi, getting to know each other. Like I said, I had already virtually met the department head, but I hadn't met the like grad admissions person yet. So that was kind of like a, hey, how are you doing through all of this? Because again, COVID times, and just getting to know each other. So then we actually started off, I think, with music, and then they asked me some questions, and then back to the music. Like I said, they didn't actually ask me all of the questions that I had prepared. They didn't ask me what are my strengths and weaknesses. They did ask me why am I choosing this degree and why now. So that is definitely, I'll venture to guess that any program is going to ask you why this degree and why now. They did sort of kind of ask me why I chose this school. So those ones were definitely good to prepare. Now, the one that they asked me that I didn't prepare for was, what is the difference between music education and music therapy? Which is a great question. Luckily, I kind of had an idea. You know, I answered it to the best of my ability, and they seemed pleased with my answer. But if this is the program that you're going into, maybe think about that. Maybe give it some thought. What is the difference between music education and music theory? And how does a, therapist slash counselor slash educator use kind of both of those in fluid ways? Just give that some thought. But of course, there's always going to be something that they ask you that you haven't prepared for. So my advice here would just be take a deep breath, think thoroughly, and then also it's okay to poke a little bit of fun at yourself, which is what I did. They understand that you're nervous. This is kind of a nerve-wracking process, and it's an important thing to you. It's an important thing to them. You're both taking it really seriously. So to kind of bring some levity to this situation, I think is not only going to feel kind of like nice for you and maybe even a little necessary at times, but it also really showcases who you are as a person. So don't be afraid to be authentic and even say, okay, excuse me, I'm just a little bit nervous right now. I've been excited for this process. Let me gather my thoughts here. And they're not going to hold that against you. So that was the interview process. It was pretty, I would say it was the back burner to the 2 different aspects. I'd say the audition was a little more prioritized, I'd say. I want to talk a little bit about the music that I chose and why, and what I would advise for someone that's in the same situation. So for my guitar pieces, of course I needed to have 1 children's song. So I actually picked a song that I wrote. It was an original piece. If songwriting is something that you're kind of playing around with, I would say definitely go for it. I think that may have, added a couple points for me in that it was an original, and children's music is some of the easiest music to write. It's pretty straightforward, not a lot of crazy things happening with chords unless you want it to. So I picked an original piece for that. And then I picked a slow kind of plucking song by James Taylor called You Can Close Your Eyes. And then I picked a faster kind of up-tempo song by Amy Winehouse, Valerie. And then I used a toe tapper for that as well. So just trying to vary up my sound, vary up my style with those 3 guitar pieces. For my piano pieces, I picked... My kids' song was You Are My Sunshine. Super easy, very straightforward, I think in the key of D. And then I picked a show tune from the musical Godspell called Save the People. And I picked a jazzier piece from Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes called Wake Up Everybody. So if you were to search pretty much any of these songs, I think that they would sound pretty familiar to you. The only song that I actually learned to play for this audition was Save the People from Godspell. And I already had a background of what that song sounded like because I love that that musical. So my advice to you, unless you have a whole lot of time and you have the time at home to devote to learning and practicing and playing, pick songs that you already know. You're going to be able to focus more on your actual style of playing as opposed to, oh my God, what chord comes next or what's the next lyric? And that's going to make your performance, because let's face it, this is a performance, all the more better. And then the second thing would be pick music that you love. I don't know about you, but I've definitely seen performances of people playing music that isn't necessarily their favorite. And when you love a piece of music that you're playing, it just kind of flows through you and it shows to the audience that you're just enjoying yourself. And that's another way to showcase who you are. So it's all about that authenticity. Pick music you love, pick music you know. Like I said, I did the one that I didn't really know too well, but that felt like enough for me. It felt like I wasn't overwhelming myself with learning all new stuff. And I'll be honest, for my 7th piece, which I ended up picking Change the World by Eric Clapton, I had originally tried to learn a jazz piece. And I spent, a good portion of the week trying to figure out this noodling pattern, and it came out sounding like I was still learning it. I'm going to scrap this. I'm going to pick something that I know I can do well, and maybe I'm not showcasing that specific skill, but I'm not a classically trained jazz guitarist, so I think it's okay to be authentic in that way. One note about this is that it did say on my requirement sheet that for my 7th piece, I could pick jazz or another piece of work based off of my musical skill, musical history. So if you're going to switch and pick something that you're more familiar with, make sure it says on your requirements, or even shoot them an email and make sure that it's okay for you to pick something other than jazz. Jazz and classical are probably the first 2 styles that you're going to see on audition requirements. So I am not classically trained in either one of those styles, so I picked things that spoke to who I am as a musician. But again, make sure that that's okay with your school's requirements. And you guys, that's it. Like I said, the whole thing took about an hour and 15 maybe. And then at the end, we talked a little bit about what the program would look like coming into it. They told me that it was going to be a little while until I found out if I was in. I got home, and maybe 2 hours later, I got my admissions letter. So I don't know if it's because it was during a pandemic and maybe they didn't have such an influx of students wanting to apply, or what the case was, but it was later that day that I found out. And I was thrilled about this because that's really something that kind of looms over you after a job interview or any type of, interview where you're like, did I get it? Did I get it? And it took a matter of hours. So that might not be the case for you. That was how it was. And and then from there on out, just, registering and all that stuff. So that was the process. I found it to be a lot less stressful than I was kind of working it up to be in my head. Regardless if you're doing it through Zoom or in person, the things that are going to help you are pick music that you love and that you know really well. Make sure you have some of your answers prepped in your head of, why this degree, why this school, and maybe, the difference between music education and music theory. Make sure you're wearing comfy clothes. Of course, you want to look nice, you want to look professional, but make sure you're wearing something that you also feel like you're yourself in. And just be authentic, just be yourself, because they're gonna want you in their school as soon as you show them who you really are. That's my advice, you guys, and I hope this was helpful for anyone who is looking to, apply to a program like this, or maybe you're, a year away, maybe you're a month away, maybe you're a week away. I hope that this is helpful for you, and I will see you all next time.